Hey gang, how are you doing? I trust this finds you well. Welcome to Mzansi and USA News. Today we shall be looking at ACDP, the African Christian Democratic Party's manifesto for the 2024's elections. Right? Okay, let's get to it. You would know that I've done MK, I've done ANC, and I've done EFF. Okay, so what has the ACP has in store for us? In their introduction, they say we all want a South Africa with a vibrant, healthy economy where jobs and opportunities are in abundance and where everyone is able to benefit and feel safe. Who doesn't want that? The African Christian Democratic Party has effective policies and solutions for the many challenges currently facing our nation, which are able to boost our economy and help create a brighter future for us all. Well, let's hear them out then if that is the case. On job creation and poverty alleviation, the ACDP states, the ACDP supports an open market economy with social conscience. Our economic policies seek to address high levels of unemployment, poverty, and inequality by growing the economy at a faster rate. Now, you can only say amen or hallelujah or whatever you say when you agree with something. This is a more than welcome change compared to all the communist stripe we have had so far from MKEFF and the ANC. The ACDP will create an enabling environment through infrastructure development, a professional public service, good education and vocational training relevant to global trends and technological advances. I'm sure we all can't wait for a professional public service, isn't it? Focus on the country's competitive advantages, including its mining and natural resources through beneficiation, sophisticated financial and business service sectors, its proximity to fast-growing African markets, high-quality universities, productive agricultural sector, growing tourism, and manufacturing and construction sectors. Support small businesses by fostering a culture of entrepreneurship through mentoring and start-up funding, skills and development and training. Well, so far so good, but one has to ask, how will these great things be done? They say the ACDP will link business needs and education and ensure that young people have relevant skills by funding degrees and diplomas that are needed. Okay? Expand the employment tax incentive for business to employ more people, particularly youth. Ensure ease of starting business by reducing unnecessary red tape and having a dedicated one-stop business registration centers. There you go. There you go. This is what I'm talking about. If you've listened to my previous videos on the other organizations. Let's move on. Remove policy uncertainty such as that relating to land, which deters foreign direct investment. Wow, what a breath of fresh air. Why are the communists failing to understand this? Really? I mean, it's a serious question in my mind. Why are they failing to understand this? Let's move on with the manifesto. And cater deployment and race-based policies that have caused inflated prices and resulted in tenderpreneur economy. I rest my case, guys. I rest my case. Could the comrades not have copied this manifesto and meant it? It's better to be a successful copy than a failed original, isn't it? Ensure that there is fair and equal access to markets for local owners who compete against increasing numbers of foreign-owned businesses. Look, this one is admirable, but my question is, how will they ensure it without too much regulations? It would be nice if you told us how, you know, because few paragraphs above you spoke about reducing the red tape. Let's proceed. Review all the components of the fuel price, including the general fuel and road accident fund levies, to provide cheaper fuel. I say amen to that. Anything that will reduce the burden of tax that we get. Let's proceed. Employ more health inspectors to monitor small businesses trading in food to ensure that they operate in accordance with food and safety hygiene regulations as we did during our tenure in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro government. Okay, it's a good initiative, agreed, if it could be done within the current MTEF budget, and I hope that it could be done within. And then they go further to say, and increase the number of social workers and community development workers to respond to the need for better welfare services in order to alleviate poverty. I hear you, but I think our problems are caused by fatherlessness at home. This is a well-documented research as to the disparities absence of the father at home creates for the future of those kids in any society. Social work will not resolve our rape rate, for an example, crime rate, and teenage pregnancy. Unless, of course, the ACDP intends to use the social workers to assess the real root cause for our dilemma. But why reinvent the wheel? Let's proceed. They talk about keeping the lights on. You see that? Keeping the lights on. And our trains and ships moving. Fixing our energy and logistic challenges is the fastest way to achieve higher economic growth. I agree with that sentiment 100%. This will not only create more jobs, but will generate higher revenue and stabilize public finances. Indeed, but let's hear what you have in mind. ESCOM, the ACDP, will make far greater use of the original equipment manufacturers to oversee maintenance duties at power stations. So who is doing the maintenance right now then, if it's not the original equipment manufacturers? Hebatum. ACDP is giving me insight into another reality here that I've never considered. Don't tell me that is the cadres. Let's move on. Employ more capable, competent persons, and when necessary, reappoint retired engineers and technical experts. 100%. I agree 100%. ESCOM was once the best service provider in their domain in the world. Just in 2000. What happened to all those engineers that made ESCOM that great? I agree with this point 100%. Exempt the energy sector from preferential procurement provisions and localization in order to exclude middlemen, which has led to corruption and grossly inflated prices. You know, these guys have sat down and thought really hard about our problems. And they went to the real root causes, not made up root causes. I hope you can appreciate what I'm seeing here with my own eyes. Ensure that all power stations are properly maintained and performing optimally, and that all design errors are speedily rectified. Prioritize high-grade coal and clean coal technology for our coal-fired power stations. I agree with that. Support increased renewable energy, including wind and solar, with independent power producers playing a far greater role in generating much needed additional energy. I don't agree with that. I believe more in nuclear energy. I'm on Elon Musk's side on this one. I think nuclear power would also give you a tremendous load base, function as a grid for that matter. Involve the coal mining sector and other stakeholders in transitions to renewables in order to mitigate job and business losses. Well, if you are going to go the renewable route, obviously they have in mind here, how then do we mitigate the risk of job losses? So I understand that that is now, if one were to say this is the only option we have at our disposal because we claim that nuclear is too expensive. But if you understand the effect of nuclear, I mean, some say that if South Africa were to have nuclear energy, it can literally power the entire African continent. Not that I'm pro powering the African continent at South African taxpayers' expense. No, those who have listened to me will know that I'm very much conscious about how much departs from my pocket and going to the state, because these individuals, you know what? Try this at home. Take money from your parents or your spouse, money that you did not earn, that someone else earned. Try and go and spend it. See how careful you become. This is a scenario of individuals who are spending our tax money. That's why they are looting it, because they lack morals. They are highly unethical individuals. So they spend that money as though, how can I say, there is absolutely no restrainers in how they spend the money. They take trips they wouldn't otherwise take to Dubai and everywhere else. Yet our people are still staying in squatter camps. Our children are still falling in pit latrine toilets. Even the African National Congress built in 2016 a school which was shocking to me, and this made news. A school that had pit latrine toilets in 2016. Can you imagine that? Whilst Minister Naledi Pandor had to be taken to court by Freedom Front Plus last year, only last year, or the AfriForum, to court for wanting to give 50 million rands to Cuba as a donation, whilst our children are falling in pit latrines. I digress. Let me come back to this. Encourage a culture of payment for electricity, particularly in municipalities that owe ESCOM billions of rands. Look, guys, there is no free lunch. Absolutely no free lunch. So it's very important for people to understand that if you're going to use electricity, you're going to have to pay for it. Someone's got to pay for it. Ensure that criminal syndicates and corrupt employees and service providers face the full force of the law. I'm with them there 100%. 100%. Transnet and PRASA, the ACDP will resolve the outstanding locomotive procurement issues, rehabilitate the rail network to move freight from roads back to rail. You know, I can't agree with this one more. Why? Look at what is happening in our roads because of the overload of all the trucks that are in the roads. These trucks are causing heavy maintenance problems for our roads, apart just from potholes. From time to time, on a more regular basis, our roads need maintenance. Why? Because they are overloaded with all these trucks. So if you fix that problem, you remove the trucks on the road. You still have trucks, but not to the same quantity that we have today. And this becomes more important then that government, whoever is in power, will deploy security, heavy security, to ensure the infrastructure that has now been built for rail is protected. What is the ACDP saying here? Deploy more digital solutions to improve efficiency and responsiveness. Sure, I mean, you could use drones to monitor certain areas and be able to have panic buttons that are pressed to deploy a quick response team to a certain area within a certain period of time. You could have a drone monitoring the activities of those who seek to do these things. The more examples are made and people are sent to jail, you would be better able to curb, in my view, because you see, punishment is a deterrent, good people. Do not underestimate that. Do not underestimate. Punishment is a good deterrent. When people are not punished for doing wrong, they will do it again. It's just that simple. Increase private sector involvement by granting more third-party access to the rail network. I believe that private sector involvement should be minimal, should be temporary, whilst we are reducing, or rather producing, we are reducing the problems we are experiencing, and they are producing solutions to those problems. Perhaps few individuals from the private sector could be seconded to these ailing parastatals with a view of professionalizing them and increasing their efficiencies. This is very, very important. But I don't necessarily agree. I mean, as I've already indicated, that ESCOM was the best in the world. It was a parastatal. It was not private sector, but public sector. So the problem with our public sector today is not the parastatals, but is the policies of the ruling party, which the ACDP here has already said they will remove those preferential procurement activities, those preferential appointments based on skin color rather than the expertise of the individual. They've already said, and I've read it in your hearing. Increase public-private joint ventures with the Transnet port terminals to ensure the ports are run more efficiently. I agree for a short-term period as a solution, as an immediate medium to short-term solution. I agree. However, not as a long-term solution. Of course, those individuals like Andre de Ruyter because we learned a lot when Andre de Ruyter came out of ESCOM. It's a pity that he had to leave, but nevertheless, we learned a lot during his stay at ESCOM. that the problem at ESCOM was more than just inefficiencies or incompetent people, but it was more organized crime by people who are directly linked to the politicians, the comrades. Expedite the passenger PRASA, expedite the passenger PRASA rebuild and recovery program, the modernization program, and the safety and security program in order to ensure that trains provide safe and affordable and reliable transport for commuters, and improve security to prevent theft and vandalism of the rail infrastructure. There you go. That's what I said a few minutes ago, to say once you fix the infrastructure, you immediately deploy security technology like drones, panic buttons attached to the same, so that to the center that is monitoring those drones, to ensure that a response team is sent immediately, instantaneously. Within few minutes, they should be on the scene to curb this organized crime of stealing steel from our infrastructure for the purposes of selling it and using it for all this, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there is a lot of cable theft that has almost been professionalized, where traffic lights are being literally taken down in South Africa. This is a new fad. Why? I don't have a clue. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I would vote for a party like this. Their manifesto, in my view, so far is the best that I've come across, and very believable compared to the communist. What do you guys think about this manifesto so far? Okay, let's look at crime and justice then. They talk about crime and justice next. Can you see that on your screen? Okay, so what is their ACDP? What will the ACDP do with crime and justice? We all want to live in a country where we feel safer, or rather safe, whether it is in our homes or playing in recreational spaces, going to work or school, or surfing the internet. We also want to see recovery of the billions of rands stolen through the state capture and corruption, and the thieves behind bars. Wow. Can't we agree with that more? Please start with Showerhead and with Ramadola. Place them together with their cabinets in jail. That would be lovely to see, a very good example, and it will send a clear signal to whoever becomes a minister in the new government that you will be caught and you will be punished for your sins against the populace, the general masses, because everybody who steals from government is stealing money that could have been utilized to better the lives of the poor. This is very important for people to understand. The ACDP will establish an independent, specialized anti-corruption entity with prosecutor-driven investigations, possibly even a new Chapter 9 anti-corruption institution that is fully resourced and has trained staff with secure tenure of office, similar to the disbanded Scorpions. This is great because it will give some level of protection and will cause people to prosecute without fear of being victimized, as we saw with Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Whatever you think about Busisiwe Mkhwebane, how she left her office was completely unceremonial, and it is never supposed to happen to a public protector. Whatever you think about her, whatever you think about her level of competence, if, for example, the parties, and I don't necessarily want to spend time, maybe I shouldn't spend time on the ACDP's manifesto talking about Busisiwe Mkhwebane. It's a separate case altogether. So I can talk about it on a different video altogether. Maybe I should just continue with the manifesto. Ensure the Auditor General, the Public Protector, SAPS, Hawks, SIU, AFU, and the NPA are properly staffed and resourced and are protected from political interference. We don't need political interference over these. Remove ministers and MECs and MMCs, whatever you want to call them, over these. These should just be Chapter 9 institutions that directly report to Parliament their budget, how they've spent it, how they've been effective, what they've done, and so on and so forth. What is key about a public protector or any of such institutions is you appoint a credible individual. That way you will not be disappointed. Let's proceed. Given the slow recovery of the tens of billions and rands stolen through state capture and corruption, approach civil courts internationally to recover these funds, which have special procedures that are swift, often unopposed, and very effective. Well, I mean, if we have such a path to take, why are we not exhausting it? Why is the current government not exhausting it? This is a great idea. Maybe they are not aware of it just as much as I was not aware of it myself. Review the parole system and deny bail for certain categories of crimes such as murder, rape, armed robbery, and car hijacking. I can't agree more. What immediately comes to mind when you talk about this subject for me is one individual in KZN was pardoned by President Zuma during his presidency, and a few weeks or less than a month, he raped an old woman who was over 90 years old or over 80 years old in KZN and murdered the woman. Yet the man was on probation. He had just been, probation, he had just been paroled by the pardon of the president. That's ridiculous. These individuals ought to stay there and rot in jail for the crime that they have committed. Broaden prison labor programs whereby prisoners will learn various skills and contribute to the cost of their boarding and lodging. Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. You can tell by the propositions made by ACDP that they are not communists. They do not care about the hindrance of the unions and all that. Unions will not have a veto right in an ACDP's government, which is brilliant. Ensure that public officials who are guilty of corrupt conduct are speedily prosecuted, not suspended indefinitely on full pay and held personally liable to refund the state. I agree. Encourage ethical behavior by strengthening whistleblower protection, which is something really that is lacking. I mean, under the current government, whistleblowers are suspended, whistleblowers lose their jobs, whistleblowers get to be killed, warrants of arrest for whistleblowers is being issued. So you can tell that they really don't care about good governance. I agree with this one. I mean, there's been a department that suspended an individual for 7 full years with pay. Can you imagine that? For 7 years, you have not been at work, but you've been receiving a full salary with benefits every month. Can you see the crime the African National Congress is perpetrating against us as a populace? I hope you do. Those of us who pay tax actually can see that. It's clear. Provide more police stations, forensic laboratories, courts, particularly sexual offences courts equipped for gender-based violence cases, and better trained and equipped personnel to improve investigations and prosecutions. I'm surprised that this call has not come from the African National Congress's Women's League. I mean, in our parliament today, there's more than 45% women in our parliament. I would have thought that such a cry would have long been made. Nevertheless, let's continue. Protect our communities and border by increasing police visibility and conducting more roadblocks. Support neighborhood watches, trauma services, and safe havens for victims of gender-based violence. Agreed? Actively assist communities in their struggle against gangsterism and drug and alcohol abuse by successfully arresting and prosecuting more drug dealers, increasing the number of sniffer dog units and shutting down dens and illegal shebeens, and strengthen the South African National Defence Force to protect our borders, conduct humanitarian and peace missions, and when called upon, to assist the police in maintaining law and order. Wow. Guys, right now I'm struggling to criticize this manifesto. To me, it's the best so far that I've come across. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really the best that I've come across so far. Okay, so the ACDP then talks about food security, property rights, rural development, and food security. Can you see that on your screen? To realize South Africa with affordable food and abundant supply, where land reform benefits people and addresses past injustices, title deeds are in the hands of those who will live on their land, and just compensation is paid where the expropriation is needed. I want to read that again. To realize a South Africa with affordable food and abundant supply, where land reform benefits people and addresses past injustices, title deeds are in the hands of those who live in their land, and just compensation is paid where expropriation is needed. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I agree with that. I mean, it's a voice of reason in the midst of tremendous unreasonable manifestos that I went through. You can see that ACDP is not looking for troubles. They are not looking for a civil war. They are looking for peace. Can you see that? Okay. The ACDP will protect all property rights and ensure that just and equitable compensation is paid for any expropriated land. Who wouldn't agree with that? Who in their right mind would not agree with that? Strengthen access to security of tenure as well as the freedom to acquire, utilize, rent and sell property including land. Ensure that state land that is not being fully utilized is allocated for the residential and agricultural needs of communities. Ensure that the ownership of tribal trust land is negotiated between the relevant traditional authority and the community in order to extend land ownership for the benefit of everyone connected to the land. Wow, wow, wow. Hey? Do you see all of this? Or am I seeing this all by myself? What are we to say to these things? Let's proceed. Finalize outstanding land restitution claims where landowners who were illegally dispossessed of their land and are compensated or have their land restored to them. How difficult can this be, seeing that we pay so much tax in this country? Almost 50% of our money is taken through tax. Provide the rural poor, labor tenants, and entrepreneurial farm workers an opportunity to access land through a system facilitated by government's own land assets and that of other willing landowners. Prioritize agricultural development and food security by protecting existing commercial farmers whilst assisting small emerging farmers to become commercially viable by having better access to finance and markets. That's a voice of reason. Observe what they are doing there. They are not dissing farmers. Not at all. As a matter of fact, you can see that there is a protection. Why? Because our food security is important. That's why I always have a problem with people who speak about farmers anyhow. You know, I listened to Biz News. I think it was Alec Hogg who presented this, where somebody... he was interviewing, can't remember who was he interviewing, and someone said he doesn't care about the farmers because he can always get the food at Pick and Pay. My goodness, it should be painful to be that stupid. It really should be painful. But nevertheless, let us proceed. Review the natural... Promote rural development through incentives for industries to relocate to rural areas and build of a better infrastructure, roads, housing, schools, and recreational facilities. This will help with a lot of things, such as the traffic congestion in the urban areas that is not really required. I mean, there's lots of businesses that are centralized in one area where they do not belong. So government could assist with giving incentives to people who go to certain areas and start their businesses there, particularly those businesses that do not depend on the mineral resources that are in the certain provinces. You get the point. Nevertheless, let's proceed. Review the National Rural Safety Strategic Plan involving all stakeholders to ensure that our farmers and their workers, as well as other rural dwellers, are more adequately protected with the possible reintroduction of the commando or similar system. This is very, very important. For our food security, farmers must feel safe and they should be protected, just like everybody else in South Africa. Ensure that illegal land invasions are met with full force of the law. Sure, we cannot have or allow lawlessness to prevail in our country and expect investor confidence to increase. Adopt measures to grow the agricultural sector and expand the number of successful commercial farmers of all races, and not, as the government wants to do, take away large amounts of land and now also water from experienced farmers and give it mainly to subsistence. We can't have a scenario like that. I understand what they are saying there. I have absolutely nothing to say but to agree with this. What is your view concerning what ACDP is saying here? Do you agree with their manifesto so far? Do you? I mean, I really, really appreciate the clarity and good governance that is being demonstrated here by a political party. What do you guys think? Now, they talk about access to housing, and I think that's very important for people to decide to vote, or people to assist people in deciding to vote, in making their decision. The ACDP is committed to protecting can you see that, is committed to protecting rights of ownership to as many citizens as possible. We will ensure that state land is justly and more productively utilized and that people can secure title deeds. For me, that alone is a reason to vote for the ACDP or any political party that espouses similar principles. Because right at the outset, the EFF states that they're going to take all land and all land shall be owned by the state. That means we shall own nothing and be happy about it. You remember that? That's completely nonsensical. The ACDP will award title deeds to qualifying residents of municipal-owned housing units, as we did during our tenure in the city of Johannesburg government, maximize the use of state land that is not being fully utilized by ensuring that it is allocated to residential and agricultural needs of communities, eradicating social backlog by promoting development of affordable and inclusionary housing through the provision of community-owned self-help schemes, urgently review the database of persons on waiting lists for housing and publish one national list to deal with any duplications. Why is the current government not taking these steps? Ensure newly built homes are properly inspected and that contractors are held accountable for poor workmanship, which includes blacklisting repeat offenders. 100% agree. See that infrastructure such as sewage treatment plants and landfill sites keep pace with housing developments to prevent pollution, unhygienic living conditions, and environmental pollution, and ensure transparency in the awarding of housing development tenders, which will go through rigorous evaluation and approval stages. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. My mind is blown away. If indeed the ACDP is able to pull this out, South Africa will go back to its former, well, it will not go back to its former glory. It will far exceed Thabo Mbeki's years as a president, because that was one government that, even if you contrasted it with P.W. Botha's government, it still did much better in terms of good governance because it incorporated everybody. As a matter of fact, Mbeki's governance was far superior than any government we have had during this dispensation, and I dare say the one that I can recall of F.W. de Klerk and P.W. Botha before him. You understand? If this government were to come to power, to me, it's pretty clear what will be happening here. Access to clean water and sanitation. Okay, now, they spoke about access to housing. I'm going to jump this because I didn't do everything in the EFF or the ANC's manifesto. You can read that for yourself. I want to go to education. Education and skills development. Everyone should have, can you see that? Everyone should have access to quality basic education in safe, well-maintained schools where parents are central to the education of their children. Quality tertiary education is accessible to those who qualify and where skills training is linked to market needs and career opportunities. I agree with that statement 100%, but did you see that they said parents should be central? I want to read that again, where parents are central to the education of their children. Did you see that? This is a difference in political ideology, good people. That's what I don't want you to miss. For as long as you keep on voting for communists, forget that you will have a say in what your children are being taught at school. Your children will be transitioned and become transgenders without your knowledge, because that's what the communists are seeking to achieve. They are seeking to give your children more rights than you. You can't discipline your very own children, and hence raising the bastards which we have, which are proliferating our society, that do not know the difference between yes and no, that do not take no for an answer. How many people have you met who say that I don't take no for an answer? You get the point? Actually, no could be good for you, because always giving children everything could ruin them. Look at the crime rate which we have today as a result of 30 years of such demonic policies of the African National Congress. Look at the rape rate which we have today. Are you following me? So we are not number one in rape in the world out of a vacuum. No, it's because of policies where parents have been criminalized. Their involvement in their children's lives has been criminalized. Where parents, if they corporally punish children, that has been made a crime. Let's proceed. Adopt a world-class education system such as the Cambridge system. repeal the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, which is the Billa Bill or the Bella Bill, provisions relating to homeschooling, the closing of rural schools, criminalization of parents. There you go. That is in the Billa Bill right now as we speak. You saw that I read it in the EFF bill, but it's in the EFF manifesto, because the EFF, just like the ANC, are communists. They also will criminalize parents who do not send. Remember, in the EFF manifesto, they clearly says children should be sent to school at 3 years old. Grade R will be the new beginning in their basic education, and children should be sent to school at that age. And parents who fail to do that will be arrested. It's there in their manifesto in black and white. If you vote for these political parties, that's what you are voting for. Don't then come out and try to toy later. It's in their manifesto. Nevertheless, let's proceed. Limitations of powers of school governing bodies and ministerial overreach, which infringes on the rights of parents. I can't agree with that more. I want to read it again. Repeal the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, that is the Bella Bill, provisions relating to homeschooling, the closing of rural schools, criminalization of parents, limitations of powers of school governing bodies. School governing bodies' powers are being limited because you are trying to give a minister overreach and authority that they shouldn't be having, and ministerial overreach which infringes on the rights of parents. Remember, school governing body is a body really representing parents. It is elected by parents for that particular school. Consider a constitutional amendment to protect parental rights and prevent ministerial infringement of these rights. Consider a constitutional amendment to protect parental rights and prevent ministerial infringement of these rights. Can't agree with that more. Reopen and equip training colleges, improve education standards and the salaries of educators, and reintroduce school inspectors. Can't agree with that more. For as long as you're in a communist state, you're going to have all these incompetencies which we are experiencing right now, where unions are the order of the day. Restrict union there they speak about it. Restrict union activities at schools that hinder the effective education of our children, and in certain instances unfairly influence the appointment and promotion of educators and principals. Introducing programs in schools to improve the standard of reading and writing. Provide for special education needs through special and mainstream schools. Repeal the 30% pass mark and the automatic promotion policies. That is complete nonsense. Nipase nonke. That's complete nonsense. I mean, today, my goodness, let me not deviate. While addressing the dropout rate by having smaller classes and enhancing mother tongue education. Okay, the mother tongue education, I'm not quite sure how is it expected considering the status quo. And it's something that, as I've said in the EFF manifesto, it can be done, but it can only be done over a long period of time by a deliberate strategic plan to say, we are investing in you, we want you to be a PhD in mathematics. We are investing in you, we want you to be a PhD in CPD. We want you to be a PhD in this language. So for the purposes of translating all learner materials into the language that is spoken in that particular vicinity. Sure, it can be achieved, but it's not a short or medium term solution. It can be achieved. I'm sure my children's children will be able to, if any political party were to implement that, will be the beneficiaries of that. Let's proceed. Focus on trade, apprenticeship, and skill schools, especially for learners who drop out of academic system. And I don't know why this is being undermined. You look at how many electric problems, plumbing problems which we are experiencing, and how that every time you're looking for a plumber, you seldom get a South African. What happened to South Africans? Yet there are so many South Africans who dropped out of school. So I agree with ACDP here. At least you can't get black South Africans. You have a lot of white plumbers and white electricians and white artisans in South Africa. Very few of them are black. Prioritize learners' health and safety in terms of school infrastructure, nutrition and transport, and ban gangsterism, firearms and drugs in schools. Of course, for as long as you have the law of the jungle as the rule of the day, which the ANC instituted under Nelson Mandela, and they are still perpetuating under this current government, you will have firearms and gangsterism in school. But the moment you bring law and order and godliness and God back in schools, then you are going to have law and order prevailing. Review, ensure grade R and early child development facilities are available in all areas. Review the comprehensive sexuality education curriculum and provide age-appropriate sex education. I disagree with that. I believe sex should be taught by parents to their own children. I don't believe any stranger should teach my children about sex. I don't believe children should be learning about sex at school at all. It opens up a door that should never be opened of teachers who would then be able to manipulate that same information, manipulating those learners and doing what you would call an experiment. And hence you have teenage pregnancies and so on and so forth. It also promotes what we call as pedophilia, and others regard as minor attracted persons. So I disagree with that. Nevertheless, I may need to be persuaded otherwise. As of now, I disagree for the reasons I've stated. Encourage students to study science, mathematics, and computer coding in addition to existing information technology, that is IT subject. I agree with that 100%. Provide schools with low-cost single-board computers to teach basic computer science principles, project freedom of religion in schools, protect freedom of religions in schools, and introduce a national senior certificate for adults. I want to read that again because I didn't do justice to it. Provide schools with low-cost single-board computers to teach basic computer science principles, protect freedom of religion in schools, and introduce a national senior certificate. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. For me, the ACDP has done a thorough job in convincing me that it's certainly an organization worthy to be considered for your vote, without a doubt in my mind. Without a doubt in my mind. Health and well-being okay. Now, this is important because I didn't do this for the EFF and I didn't do it for the ANC, so I won't. But what I've observed in their ACDP's manifesto that is not in any of the other manifestos is the issue of protecting and promoting your freedoms, right? Right there where they talk about the second last paragraph. It says they're looking ahead. The ACDP will ensure. Can you see that paragraph? Here is the paragraph. Let it be that's the paragraph. Can you see that? That's the paragraph I'm talking about. Looking ahead, the ACDP will ensure the WHO's amendments to the International Health Regulations of 2005 and proposed pandemic treaty do not infringe on our sovereign right to determine our own public health policies, and that they are subjected to parliamentary approval, which will include a full public consultation process. We will also oppose any digitally aided authoritarian governance underpinned by cyber controls, social monitoring, propaganda, and surveillance. While the ACDP stands for religious freedom, we will ensure that any unlawful attempts by jihadist groups to create an Islamic state governed by Islamic law in South Africa face the full force of the law. Now, I didn't see the second last paragraph in any of the manifestos. If it is there, you'll bring that to my attention on your comments down below. I thought the issue of the pandemic treaty should have been addressed by all political parties that have not sold this country's soul to the World Economic Forum. Nevertheless, that's the ACDP's manifesto, guys. Tell me what you think about it. For me, it's quite fascinating. It's a breath of fresh air, comparatively speaking, to the communist tribe that we have already heard from the other organizations. And I certainly would vote for a party like this, without a doubt. But then our last manifesto, or second last, I said this was the second last. Our last manifesto is the DA's manifesto. If we get the time, then we'll do Action SA. Okay, because I've done 3 communist manifestos. I think I should do 3 non-communist manifestos as well. This is clearly not a communist manifesto. I know the DA is not a communist. I know Action SA is not a communist. So I think I should certainly do Action SA. You tell me down below what you think about it. Okay, that's it for now. Ciao, ciao. See you on the next video. Bye for now.